All right, so episode one of the podcast with my uncle Ethan.
Hey,
Um, so so we were talking about fantasy. How's your fantasy season going?
I'm just one team this year, so I've kind of stepped back a little bit. I used to manage like three teams, and I'm just too busy and can't keep up with
Yeah.
like real time football stats.
hmm
So I'm in kind of a family league with Rosie's family, but I'm in second place right now, so not doing too bad.
So you have Hurts starting. Um,
Yeah, I've Dak Prescott, who I usually
oh,
start,
okay, yeah,
but
I like Dak.
yeah,
Dak's a good fantasy quarterback, just cause, especially now with those weapons he has at receiver.
yeah, yeah, he's done pretty well. He was out this week, so I had to start Hurts. So.
Yeah. Um, have you been affected by the running back debacle? Just all these
Oh my
running
God.
backs going down.
Yeah, I've got McCaffrey.
Oh
So
no, that's the worst one.
he was like my first pick. Yeah,
Uh
I
huh.
know, it's terrible. So I've just been kind of keeping him on the bench and fingers crossed he can kind of come back and do something. But
Is McCaffrey the only one that's got injured for you?
no, my like entire bench, like this week especially, I had like all my players who were actually playing and making points, and in my bench was all zeros.
Yeah. I actually haven't been affected negatively by the whole running back thing. When McCaffrey got down, uh, I picked up Chuba Hubbard
Yeah,
as backup. He's been great. At first, my fantasy season was looking real shaky. I couldn't figure it out at tight end. But then the Bills tight end came into light, and he just started scoring a lot of points. So I was like, okay, I'll put him in.
nice.
So he really turned my season around. And Cordell Patterson, I picked up Cordell Patterson in like week
Oh, right
two
on.
after he scored that 30-point game, and I was
Yeah,
like, and he's been producing great ever since. And I
that's
also
cool.
lucked out taking Matthew Stafford
Mm,
because he was like the only really question I had. I was like, I don't know, new system and
yeah,
everything, but
yeah,
he's obviously a great talent. And I think we're seeing that more so this year than ever because he's actually on a team that can win.
yeah, totally. He's good. I mean, I always knew he was good, but he just,
Mhm.
didn't really have the support that he needed.
No, I mean, if you want to ruin a career, you go to the Bears or not the Lions.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they ruined Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of other great players that just sucked because they were up the Lions.
Are you on a league with a bunch of friends who take it pretty seriously?
No, um, I'm in a league with one of my friends, Jesse. It's just me and him, and then a bunch of random people. Uh,
Cool.
at the top, there's like a people who know what they're doing, and then as you go
Yeah.
down, it just becomes less and less experience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I actually got Devonte Adams and Tyreek Hill on the same team.
Wow. Nice.
Cause so it lucked out for me because I picked second to last and Jesse picked last. So I told him before, I was like, I'm gonna take Devonte Adams and Tyreek Hill. So he didn't really screw me. He could have really screwed me, but
Oh yeah.
he was cool. He
That
didn't
bro
screw me.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool.
Um
The league I'm in is like I said, Rosie's family, and they don't take it all that seriously. So there's
mhm,
usually some really good people that you can pick up. Like her dad just recently dropped Mahone,
mhm.
which I mean is kind of unheard of. So I wasn't able to pick him up. I couldn't get him on waivers. Someone else beat me to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's usually some good players, and like I said, they don't really get too serious about it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly that's like the best league for me to play in because like I see something and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm taking that. But
Yeah,
last week I
totally.
was on like a 4-game win streak. I started out 1-2, and then, like I said, Knox for the Bills came, and then Patterson saved me, and Chuba Hubbard. They all saved me, and
Yeah,
Eli Mitchell. He scored a lot of points.
cool.
Um, and so they saved me, and I was on a 4-game winning streak, and then I just lost to like the number 8 guy
Oh,
because so I had Devonte Adams, and he got put on the COVID reserve list like the day of the game. And
yeah,
so by the time I noticed anything, I was like, "Oh," and I couldn't switch him, so I had a fat 0
Bummer.
for one of my highest scores. I mean, Devontae Adams scored a lot of points. And I
Oh
still
yeah,
almost beat him too, which I was kinda proud of my team. We fought till the end, but Tyreek Hill just couldn't score enough points. He had 16 in the first quarter, and then I think he ended up with, like, 24, which is good for him because lately he's been sucking. He's been stinking it up.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that whole team really. I mean,
Yeah,
they pulled it off last night, but
really, they could have easily lost that. Just
oh yeah,
just the Giants' play calling is awful, and they cannot protect Danny Dimes.
yeah, right,
I mean, they would try to boot him, and he would just have 4 guys in his lap.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it's weird this season. I think it's just kind of becoming the norm, but it's like, people will sit as questionable until game time, so it leaves
Mhm.
you kind of with not knowing and just
Yeah,
taking your best guess.
yeah. How's it being an Eagles fan?
It's tough, I've been an Eagles fan for a long time, so I've
Uh-huh.
seen a lot of bad seasons and
Yeah.
then a few good ones sprinkled in there. So, you just gotta kind of hold out and hope for the best next season. I think
I think if they can protect Hurts, they got something.
Hurts is good. Yeah, he's showing some promise.
I mean, he's running for his life every game.
Yeah, totally.
Do you like any other rookies? Are you high on
You
any
know,
other rookies?
not really. I mean, I just haven't really been following it like I normally do. So
Mhm.
I don't really even know who to watch for. Or who, oh, there you go.
Okay. So,
It
yeah,
could
you
be me.
don't.
I'm sitting outside, so I think I have pretty good signal here, but you might hear some background noise, some dogs
No,
howling or something.
it's sounds perfect to me.
Okay, cool.
So, so you've been busy with work, I assume?
Yeah, work, and then when I'm not working, I like to come up here, and I've got a lot of side projects going on up here.
Yeah, so, um, for anyone who doesn't well, everyone who doesn't know, what do you exactly do?
So I'm a pilot for a charter company. We're based in Oakland, California.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of private jet travel, which has just skyrocketed since COVID. So
Have you flown
a lot of
Steph Curry?
businesses.
Steph Curry
I'm
anymore?
not really. I'm not supposed to drop names. I've got kind of a confidentiality agreement in place, but
Mhm,
we, based in Oakland, so the Warriors are out there,
mhm.
and we kind of fly all those guys around. So
Um,
it's the season right now. You don't really get them
yeah,
flying a lot during the season.
uh-huh. Yeah, so obviously we have COVID going on. Has, vaccines or anything been like, uh, a thing in your environment?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So it's not mandated by my company. It's just strongly recommended.
Mhm,
And we have, I think, maybe one pilot out of like 30 who hasn't been vaccinated. So the majority of people have been. Um, for me, it's like, my wife is a nurse in San
mhm,
Francisco, and her unit turns into a COVID unit anytime we get spikes out here.
uh-huh,
So, for me, it's a little bit more real than for some of the other guys who, aren't really exposed to it that
right,
much.
right.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think that that's how it should be. I think you can strongly recommend it or not recommend it at all, but I don't think it should be mandated. I feel like that's turning into something that's not America.
Yeah, it's really too bad that it's kind of like turned that. I mean, I think anything that's like a polarizing topic automatically just turns political, and
Mhm.
you have kind of two different sides there. Which with something like this, it affects everybody. Maybe we should take a different look at it, and instead of political look.
Well, yeah, and I think like a lot of people, they're like, I'm not going to do it just because you're going to make me do it. Like, I feel like if you just leave the door open, then it's like if you do it, here's the benefits to it, and obviously show the cons and pros. and let them make their own decision. I feel like that's the way it should be.
Yeah, definitely. I think, present the facts as they are. Don't try to skew them to one side or the other. But there's actually a lot of data and science out there right now.
Hmm.
For the vaccine. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. So you live in San Francisco, right? And then you
So
have a house north.
yeah, so we have an apartment in Alameda, California,
Okay.
which is a little island in the bay right next
Hmm.
to the Oakland airport. And uh, the way that my schedule works right now, I work 9 days in a row, and then I have 6 days off. So I
Okay.
go down there, work a bunch, and then for the 6 days off, I come up here and we have a house in Arnold, California, which
Okay.
is kind of in the foothills of the Sierras. Not
Hmm.
really the foothills. I guess it's about 4,000 feet up, so we're kind of in the mountains.
And you said you had projects. What kind of projects you got going on there?
You know, I so we bought this house a little over a year and a half ago, right around there.
Hmm.
And as a homeowner, I think you just always have projects going on. There's just
Yeah.
always things that you want to improve, and things that you want to change and fix, which is really cool, because we come up here to relax, but then also we can kind of do some projects on the side. So I've done a few things to the house lately. I've installed kind of a rain catchment,
Hmm.
um, on the side of the house that catches a lot of rainwater. So as you might know, California is in like a
Yeah.
crazy severe drought,
Uh-huh.
um, and we go months and months at a time without any rain.
Hmm.
So like to kind of try to at least you know get some water to trees that need it and different plants and stuff in the yard. So I did that. Um, been working on restoring an old wood burning stove. It's kind of cool. It's an old cast iron wood burning stove.
Hmm.
Just some little stuff like that.
Yeah. So, uh, it's are you guys still flooded and stuff?
No, well, we're not up here. We're not really affected by that. I
Oh,
mean, we
okay.
did have, which is crazy. So like last week, we had this atmospheric river just kind of sitting on top of California,
Hmm.
and it didn't rain for like 5 or 6 months, and then all of a sudden we get like 6 inches of rain in like 36 hours. So it just dumped on us. So a lot of the areas that burnt this summer did have some like flooding and some runoff and some issues there.
Yeah. So I mean, how's it been overall? Um, we haven't. It's been a while since we've caught up.
Yeah, I know, right? The things are going good. Yeah. Like I said, Rosie and I are still working a decent amount. So
Hmm.
work for both of us is just super steady and busy. And then we are getting a dog here in a few weeks. So
What
that'll
kind of
be
dog?
kind of it's called a cavapoo.
Okay.
So it's a cross between a like a King Charles Spaniel
Hmm.
and a miniature poodle.
Okay.
So just kind of cute little fur ball. But yeah,
And
we
you're
did.
getting it as a puppy, right?
Yeah, we're picking it up at like 8 weeks old. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so it's
Nice.
kind of exciting. We're looking forward to that.
It's real nice.
Yeah.
So, has anything like cool happened with just in life? Anything super cool?
Let's see. I one thing that's kind of cool, and it's hasn't happened for a little while with COVID and everything, but it
Hmm.
turns out it's a super good time to be a pilot.
Okay.
There's a ton of opportunities out there for pilots, which you know I've been doing this for long enough where I've seen kind of both sides of it, to where there's just
Hmm.
no jobs and you have to just kind of take what you can get and be a little scrappy.
Hmm.
And then now it's just like opportunities everywhere. So we're looking at kind of like a major pilot shortage here coming up.
Hmm.
They've been talking about it for a long time, and we're like now starting to see it. So hiring is kind of opened up for basically every company right now.
So, that's actually good to transition into, uh, what did it take to become a pilot? Like, what's the schooling look like and everything like that?
Yeah, so there's, a few different ways to do it. There's like a lot of people join the military to become a pilot.
Mhm,
I didn't go that route. I did it kind of a more traditional way, which is just go to aviation school.
mhm,
So the school that I went to is in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I went down there and did the airplane mechanic school first.
okay.
And then I got a job over at the flight school and enrolled in flight school. And there's quite a few steps to becoming a professional pilot. I mean, it's easy to get your pilot's license and just do it recreationally, but if you want to do it professionally, it takes a lot of dedication and quite a bit of time.
Yeah, so how much schooling? Like, how long did it take you schooling-wise?
Yeah, so it took me a while. I was working full time. Um, as I was going to flight school.
Mhm,
So, for a lot of people, you can kind of knock it out. You could do everything in about a 2 year time span.
okay,
Get all of your licenses and ratings.
mhm,
But for me, it took about 4 years because I couldn't just dedicate every day to it. I
mhm,
was working 5 days a week, 10-hour days typically. So
right.
it took me a little bit longer, but I stuck with it and did it. And like I said, I've seen kind of both sides of the coin as far as opportunities go.
Mhm,
And when I graduated flight school, it was 2009. We were in, a really bad recession then. Nobody was hiring. In fact, I graduated with about 33 people in my class, and I'm like one of three that I know is actually still flying.
wow.
Yeah, a lot of people got really discouraged and just got out of it.
Yeah, so is there like, in particular reason why you didn't go the military route? Like, or is just how the cards unfolded?
Yeah, I think when I graduated high school, it was 2002.
Mhm,
So we were, in a war, um, and I had friends join the military, um, and for me, it just wasn't appealing.
mhm,
I like to travel and see the world, but
right,
not necessarily in that way.
right,
Um, and I just decided to get a bunch of student loans
mhm.
and go for it at flight school.
And so did you need to take the airplane mechanics course in college, or could you just went straight into flight school?
Yeah, I could have gone straight into flight school, but I kind of grew up always a little bit mechanically minded, and I
Mhm,
liked that aspect of it. And kind of when I started out on this journey, I wanted to be able to have my own airplane and
mhm,
do my own maintenance and work on it myself, and really kind
right,
of have a good working knowledge of the airplane.
mhm,
So I decided to go that route, which not a lot of people do, but I think it was a big benefit to do that. I was able to when I graduated, like I said, there nobody was hiring. I couldn't get a flying job anywhere,
mhm,
not even flying for free. It just wasn't around.
mhm,
So my mechanics license is what kept me in aviation, and
right.
was able to make friends and connections that way and stay in flying. And people who had their own airplanes wanted to take flight lessons or have their kids take flight lessons with me. So I was able to keep current and kind of weathered the storm that way. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so do you actually own your own airplane yet, or is that still a goal?
Yeah, so it's still a goal. I recently purchased a kit airplane.
Okay,
So what this is it's basically it comes to you in parts and pieces, and you build it. So you build it in three different sections. So I ordered the tail section first. So it should be here in about 2 months, and I'll
okay.
put together the tail section, and then you order the empennage and then the wing, and you build them all three separately, and then you put them all together. So
And this is a fully functioning plane you can do this with?
this is a fully functioning airplane that I'm going to build. Yep.
Wow, so your schooling is coming in handy right now.
Yeah, I've got all the tools I need to do it. I've got the space up here to do it now, so I'll build it in my garage, and then
Okay.
I'll take it all out to the airport and put it all together out there.
How do you transport that? Do you just fly it to the airport or do you get it?
Yeah, so like I said, you'll build it in three different sections. So I'll have the tail
Okay,
section, the empennage or the body, and then the
okay,
wings. So
okay.
once I have all three of those put together, um, I'll put it on a trailer and take it to the airport and put them all three together.
And you can haul the trailer, like, with a normal truck, or you need a semi or
Yeah, yeah, the airplane's not all that big. It's a two-seater,
okay.
so it's fairly small. So um, it'll all fit on a trailer, maybe a couple loads.
So, um, so in, like, size relation, so the plane that we flew for my what was that, 10th birthday over the
Yeah,
bay,
yep.
is that bigger, smaller, the same about the same size? How big?
It's just a little bit smaller.
Oh, okay,
So the one that we flew was 4 seats. This
okay.
one is 2 seats. So you could say it's just a little bit kind of shrunken down from that. But it's a super cool airplane. It's fully aerobatic.
Mhm.
It's fast. It's a lot faster than the one we flew.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
How much does gas? Like, do you gotta cover gas? Like, how's gas work, especially when you're flying commercially or
Yeah.
charter like you are?
Yeah. So this airplane that I'm building, I'll have to, of course, cover all that.
Mhm.
Um, Gas, it's weird because it fluctuates. Sometimes avgas is cheaper than gas at the gas pump for your car,
Okay.
and then sometimes it's more expensive. I think right now it's more expensive. It's about $5 or $6 a gallon. But for people who charter planes, all that's a fixed cost. It's built
Oh,
into the charter quote and the price of the trip.
yeah, and you get to, like, spend a couple days here and there, like, throughout the country, right? Like, when you fly
Yeah,
people?
yeah, that's one of the more appealing, things that kind of took me to this position was, and you get a lot of mini vacations. You
Mhm,
fly a lot of um, high profile and well-to-do people, and they're typically going on vacation to some pretty cool spots.
mhm.
So then you get to go and you get to spend time there. And, my company puts you up in a nice hotel, usually gives you a rental car, and we just get to go explore, which is, one of my favorite parts.
And you get to, like, actually, like, go explore, you're not just cooped up in a hotel or like, you get to go embrace it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we usually get a rental car, and I'm with one other person typically, and
Mhm.
they're all pretty well like-minded. So, we like to get out of the hotel as much as we can and go explore. I love going to like national parks and going on hikes or going golfing or just whatever we can do.
And what's the longest flight you've ever flown?
Huh. So one of the airplanes that I fly, it's called a Citation Sovereign.
Okay.
It's it's considered a super mid-sized jet, and it'll stay airborne for about 7 hours. So I've done two flights that were 7 hours in that airplane before, and one was Portland, Maine to
Okay.
Oakland, California. So that's a pretty good one. And then the other one was Santa Fe, New Mexico to Dillingham, Alaska. So both of those were
Oh.
about 7 hours long.
And wait, so I assume if it's from Maine to Oakland, you flew to Maine in, like, a normal jet or, like, your typical jet, and then you flew back in that one, or
No, we
how'd
took
that
it
work
out for
out?
the whole trip. Yeah, we flew out
Oh,
in
oh, okay.
that jet. Yeah, so this that was a cool trip too. Actually, it was about a 4-day trip, and we just had 2 days free in Portland, Maine. It's a pretty cool spot. It's got a lot of a lot of history, um,
Mhm,
some really good food if you like seafood and lobster.
mhm.
And then there's a ton of breweries up there too. So
Yeah.
we just had a really good time with that.
And what's the coolest place you've ever been? Like, if you could go back, if there's a
Huh?
place that stands out and that you wanna go back.
Yeah. Um, so many good ones, man. So many good ones. Um, been to the Caribbean quite a few times, and usually when we go there, it's like not to like the most touristy popular spot. It's usually to some islands that are a little more desolate with some
Mhm.
small, airports and runways.
Mhm.
So that's been pretty cool. I've done some fishing out there before. Um, let's see, Alaska's obviously pretty cool. When you fly around places like Alaska, the view of these glaciers and the mountains
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
just unreal, you know. So, um, scenery wise, it's probably been Alaska has been one of my favorites. But there's like I said, I'm real big into kind of outdoors and hikes and parks and stuff like that. So one of my favorite places to fly into is Page, Arizona.
Okay.
And Page, Arizona, it's this little town. It's right on the border of Utah, and Lake Powell
Okay.
is right there. But you're 2 hours away from like 5 or 6 national parks. So it's just a really good kind of a hub and to go exploring. Bryce Canyon, Zion, um, Arches,
Mhm.
Canyonlands, the Grand Canyon. All those places are within reach when you go there. So
And so you said like runways. Does the size of the runway really affect you, or is it just business as usual regardless of the runway size?
no, yeah, we have to take all that into account. One of the cool things is we don't just go to the major airports. We go to a
Mhm.
lot of these little satellite airports or smaller ones that are a little more inaccessible to commercial aircraft.
Mhm.
Um, so we have to have it's a certain percentage of performance that you have to like be able to land on the runway and stop within a certain distance.
Mhm.
So we have to run performance analysis on all the airports we go to, but we can get into some pretty small places, which is cool.
And I assume your performance analysis looks good.
Yeah, we've got a really good program for that. Takes into account current conditions, weather conditions, any snow or anything like that affecting the runway.
Mhm.
Um, you know, um, it's a really robust program and it works for takeoff and for landing. So we have to run that pretty much every flight.
And going back to the gas thing, do you just use like typical like gasoline or is it jet fuel?
Yeah, so on turbine engines, it takes jet fuel,
Okay.
and it's similar to like kerosene.
Okay.
To where it'll burn slower than like gasoline.
Okay.
And then for reciprocating engines, um, or like the propeller planes, like the one we flew, it takes avgas, which is just a higher octane than your normal gas.
And jet fuel, do you use jet fuel?
Yeah,
Okay, so jet fuel is not like super expensive and it like fluctuates.
it does, and it depends on where you go too. So,
Mhm.
like in Oakland, we'll spend about $4 a gallon, but we go to places like Aspen, Colorado, where it's like
Mhm.
$8 a gallon. So,
Wow.
yeah, so fuel, really plays uh, into how you do your planning, whether you want to take a bunch of fuel where it's cheap and a little fuel where it's not so cheap, and all
Mhm.
that stuff kind of plays into our planning.
And have you been like overseas? Like, have you been to Europe flying wise, or has it just been
No,
kind of?
not with this company anyway. I mean, I've done some like leisure travel trips
Mhm.
overseas, for fun. But
Mhm.
this company, we just got international operations approved.
Okay.
So there's a few of our planes that will go to Europe. The plane that I'm in, we do Canada, Mexico, like I said, the Caribbean, but that's about as much kind of abroad or overseas stuff, different countries that we see.
Is there a possibility that you end up going overseas eventually?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like I said, we just got approved for international travel.
Mhm.
And what that's going to do for the company is it's going to bring a lot of the bigger, heavier jets that have no problem getting overseas. And, um, so once that all starts to kind of unfold, we're going to really kind of open up our international operations.
And does the size of the jet affect how you fly it? So, like, do you fly a smaller jet, kind of like the same mechanically, like is business as usual as a bigger jet, or is there more you got to take into account and manage depending on this plane size?
What's funny is a lot of the smaller ones are harder to fly. Um, they're less automated sometimes.
Mhm,
You get into like the bigger jet categories, it's some of the easiest flying that you can ever do because
mhm,
the plane just basically does everything, so um, it's the way that kind of it's going too is just that these companies that are still building airplanes, they're just so automated nowadays. You know, you're on autopilot
mhm.
for the majority of the time. Most planes have auto throttles, auto land, all that stuff. So
And do your jets have that, or do you still, uh, land mechanically?
yeah, so even when you do have auto land, you probably do the majority of landing on your own.
Oh,
You
okay.
just have the ability. So like a lot of the commercial planes that you'll fly have that feature, and I think you probably have to test that feature once every so often. But for the most time, I think pilots are actually doing the landing, and all the planes that I fly are yeah, they're manual like that.
Okay, and now so you know how Elon Musk, this alien of a human, is
Yeah,
just creating all kinds of crazy stuff, and he's
yeah,
starting to create like nano robots that can do human tasks.
yeah,
And so, for me, that's like that. I take that into account when I'm picking a career in the future, and that's why
sure,
I'm going to ultimately go into the medical field because, and plastic surgery specifically, because I don't think a robot will ever be able to perform surgery, and if it can, then you're still going to need somebody to overlook in case something goes wrong, because all
yeah,
surgery has
absolutely,
risks. And so that's what that took in a lot, that made it kind of made the decision very easy for me when determining what I'm going to do in the future, especially, and I enjoy learning about the human body. And so, for pilots, do you think that, is the demand for pilots going to always be there, or do you think eventually it's going to be a thing where it's just, kind of like cars, it's just drive themselves?
I think a little bit of both. I think with every new airplane they build, there's more and more automation built in.
Hmm.
But I think as far as like the flying public goes, they're not really okay with the idea of nobody up front.
Hmm.
But I mean, clearly we have that capability, right? I mean, we have drones flying around. It'd be easy to scale that up into a large airplane.
Hmm.
Um, but what one of the cool things about aviation is that, there's still planes that are in the air flying around that are, from the 20s and 30s. You know, and if you maintain an airplane well enough, I mean, it'll last a lot longer than you will. So I think there's always going to be, pilots actually flying airplanes, but I think with anything you're going to see more automation. I could see probably one pilot up front instead of two,
Hmm.
for some commercial operators. But honestly, I don't think that's really going to affect my career.
Hmm.
Maybe in a generation or two, it'll look a lot different. But for me, I don't see that really being a big factor.
Oh, and so every time you go into a commercial airplane, uh, why don't they have TVs in there, like little TVs? Is there like a specific reason, or like they're just too cheap? Flying old planes, like what's the deal? Because I was just in Vegas and they updated their seats, but they didn't update, put a TV. Do you know if there's a reason, or that's just life?
I think it just depends on the operator. I think there's definitely a cost factor that's factored in there. But a lot of the planes do have TVs on the back of the headrest in front of you. Um, I think you'll continue to see that, but I do think there are a lot of operators that kind of cut costs at every corner. As
Hmm.
long as they don't jeopardize safety, and but that's so
Right.
they can keep the ticket cost down and stuff like that. So I think that's probably the reason.
And so I also saw this myth, and I don't know how true it is, but like if a plane's crashing, um, they teach you a way to kind of like ensure your death so they don't get stuck with a lawsuit or anything.
Oh wow.
As far as that, they're like I have flight attendants or something. And so I just wanted to ask you, how do you survive a plane crash? And as a
Yeah,
pilot, can you avoid that and, like, kind of smoothly glide to the ground, or is it just crashing and burning?
yeah. So I've not heard that they're teaching people that. That's the first for me. But yeah, it's I mean, I think that's maybe a misconception by a lot of people is, if you are to like lose both engines on a jet, you're not just going to fall out of the sky. The
Mhm,
plane doesn't just do one of these and go straight down.
right.
It turns into a glider, and glide ratio when you're up, at a high altitude is really far. So you can safely bring an airplane down to the ground. And likely if you're to lose engines when you're about 40,000 feet in the air, there's probably an airport within reach where you can glide it to.
So, as far as a pilot goes, you just radio in and say, "I lost my engines. I'll be gliding," or you just
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, you troubleshoot first, right?
mhm,
So you might declare an emergency and then start troubleshooting, but typically, there's a checklist for that. So, we train twice a year in simulators for all worst case scenarios. And, we usually don't get lucky enough to have an engine out at a really high altitude. Usually in the simulator, it happens right after takeoff, the worst case scenario.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, there's definitely safe ways to troubleshoot. Hopefully, restart an engine. But if not, then you let ATC know, and they're there to help you. So they'll tell you where the best airports are around you. They'll point you in the right direction. They'll have crews waiting on the ground. So they're pretty efficient now.
And so, obviously, so flight school, speaking of, uh, virtual reality, simulators, uh, do in flight school, how does that work? Is it more hands-on training? Like, are you flying a jet with somebody, like, they're making sure you can fly it? Or are you in a simulator?
You're talking about when you're first learning how to fly, or like
Right.
the
Just
yeah.
throughout flight school.
Yeah, so most flight schools have simulators, and you'll do your first, 2 to 5 hours in a simulator, and that kind of gets you used to the controls, where to look, what everything kind of looks like, because it's a mock-up of a real cockpit, and most of the time they're identical to the plane you're going to fly. Um, so it's good to go in that and kind of start building a little bit of muscle memory on where stuff is and what to do and what to look for, and then take that to the real airplane.
And
But
so
majority of
it's
stuff
you
so the
go.
majority of flying that you do at flight school is in a real airplane.
Oh, and so as far as virtual reality goes, is it like it's like the real deal? Like it's not like skewed in any way. Like it's almost identical to what you'd actually be doing in a real life situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's several different types of simulators. Some are static, which means they just are on the ground. They don't move. They don't do anything. They just have like
Mhm.
a computer screen or a TV screen in front of you, and it's all you know terrible graphics typically at the
Mhm.
flight schools. But then when you go to places like flight safety, which is where we do our recurrent training, they're full motion simulators, wraparound view. They simulate the airplane exactly, and it feels like you're in the airplane, turning, climbing, descending, landing. Whatever it may be, it simulates it really, really well. It's very accurate, and you can count those hours directly as flight hours, like you're flying the actual airplane because they're for
Oh,
real.
wow. So, as far as getting a job goes, does do the Air Force guys have better chances of getting a job like over somebody like you, or is it even playing field? How does that necessarily work?
I think that's somewhat operator specific too. I think in general terms, military guys probably have a leg up. I think a lot of big operators are happy to hire military people because they kind of know what they're getting.
Mhm.
Military is really kind of strict and straightforward and rigid. So
Right.
you come out of that, and the commercial operator, if you go like the majors or something, they know what they're going to get. Whereas, people like me that are kind of flying, um, you know, non-military, so a lot of other stuff like that, which is great experience too. Um, I'd say sometimes you're on a level playing field, but I think in general, those guys are probably going to get picked first.
Yeah. So, oh wait, I kind of lost my question. But um, oh, so for you, have you ran into anything where like you got a military guy's gotten a job over you or anything like that, or has it been fair for you?
Yeah, no, I think it's been pretty fair. I've been pretty lucky, in being in the right place at the right time to kind of take advantage of good opportunities. I don't think I've been directly competing, at least to my knowledge, with a military guy for a job. But we've
And
hired
oh,
military, we've hired a lot of military pilots where I work, and um, they're great pilots typically.
are you still with the same company you've always been with, or have you flipped and flopped?
I've been with the company I'm currently with for 7 years,
Okay,
um, and prior to this, I flew cargo, so I did that for
like
2 years.
mail.
Yeah, like Amazon boxes and stuff like
Okay, yeah, I
that.
remember that. Okay.
Yeah, so I did that for 2 years, and that's kind of where I'd say I cut my teeth flying wise, because that was a lot of single pilot, bad weather, in airplanes that are questionably maintained and don't have a lot of the features that the jets that I fly have. Like you're
Hmm.
lucky if you have autopilot, you're lucky if you have GPS. Um, so you're kind of flying around old school.
How does that work if you don't have GPS? You got to get a map out, or
Well, you fly just based on your instruments. So
Mhm.
all over the country there are these like ground-based navigational aids that you can tune your radio. Oh, there you are. So it's it's old school. People don't really fly like that anymore, except for those guys.
So would you rather prefer what you're doing now, or would you rather fly cargo?
Oh no, I like what I'm doing now compared to that. I mean, I'm really glad I did that for the experience. Like I said, it really kind of made a pilot out of me. I feel like,
Hmm.
um, but I mean, it doesn't really compare to the flying that I'm doing now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I remember. Oh, do you have your helicopter's license? Did you ever get that?
No, I've got a few hours in the helicopter, but it's one of those things that's on my list.
Would you rather fly a helicopter, or do you like flying planes?
Yeah, I like flying planes. I like going places. Helicopters kind of short range. You're somewhat limited. I mean, there are some super nice helicopters that I'd love to fly, but in general, plane will take you farther, faster, and that's kind of what I like.
Is it like super different than flying a plane, or is it kind of the
Yeah,
same?
no, it's totally different. Um, when you're flying a helicopter, both hands are doing something independently, and both
Hmm.
feet are as well. So if you can think of like playing the drums where everything's kind of doing something different, that's what it's like flying a helicopter. And all those kind of have to come together, in harmony to be able to really do a good job with it. Where flying an airplane, it's just you got your yoke and you got your rudder pedals. So I would say that it's probably a little more challenging to learn how to fly a helicopter than it is an airplane.
And what do you do when you're flying? Like, do you listen to podcasts? Like, watch shows? Like, what do you do while you're flying? Because like, you know, long time.
Yeah, yeah. Your primary responsibility is to monitor the airplane and make sure everything's
Hmm.
safe. So obviously that kind of is the number one. But yeah, it's not uncommon for me to put on a podcast and listen to that while I'm flying. Or um, you know we typically have Wi-Fi, so I can do a little work or send an email or something like that. But for the most part, we're just kind of flying, talking to each other, and trying to pay attention.
Is there any particular reason why you have two pilots?
Yeah. So the one of the types of jets that I fly can be operated single pilot, and we
Okay.
do that on occasion. So it really depends on the airplane that you're flying. Single pilot airplanes have everything in like close proximity to the left seat, to where you can reach everything, you can do everything and safely. And then some airplanes are set up to where it's a little bit spread apart, and the left seat and the right seat are totally different, to where you can't reach everything on the right side. And they're just more complex airplanes, so it's just better to have two sets of eyes on everything as well. And just in
And,
general, I think two pilots is a better way to go.
yeah, and so what's the difference between a co-pilot and a pilot? Like, are you guys as far as like are you guys equals as far as like command goes, or like what makes one better than the other? What's different as far as
It, you know,
responsibilities?
it depends really. So, you know, typically like your traditional cockpit, you'll have a captain and a first officer.
Hmm.
Captain sits left seat, first officer sits right seat. Captain's just got a lot more experience. A lot of times it's an hour requirement. So you have to have a certain amount of hours before you're able to be qualified as a captain.
Hmm.
Um, your right seaters typically are people who are building more time, trying to get those hours and qualifications. So, but we fly captain on captain a lot of times too. So I think it just really kind of depends on the operation. But in general, the guy in the left seat has more experience than the guy in the right seat.
Are you typically captain?
I'm like almost always captain.
Mm.
Yeah, like I said, I'm number one seniority at the company that I'm with.
Mhm.
Um, I was chief pilot for this company for about 5 years. So I'm almost always, unless I'm doing some sort of training for somebody, I'm almost always the captain.
And what's chief pilot mean? And is it like a thing where kinda like the president, you get a certain tenure and then you're done and it moves on? Or, are you still chief pilot? Like, what's that? What's it entail?
The chief pilot is like it's a position that the company has to have. It's mandated by the FAA that you have to have a chief pilot, and they are basically responsible for all of the pilots in that company. So they manage everybody else. And I, like I said, did that for about 5 years. I stepped down from that position this year, just because uh, I've got kind of other things that I want to work on my free time. And that position, it's a 24/7 position. You have to be available around, and you're handling, any operational issues, personal issues, just all the pilot stuff, and it's a lot of stuff. It was a good experience for me, but I'm happy that I'm not doing it now.
Do you think you'll ever go back to being the chief pilot?
Um, I doubt it. It's funny they say, and it's kind of rings true. There's two types of chief pilots: the chief pilot that never was, and the chief pilot that never will be again. And I don't really have a desire to do that again right now. But maybe in the future with the right company and the right circumstances. I like developing those relationships with all the pilots, which is really kind of what you do as a chief pilot.
Do you see yourself going to another company, or do you see yourself with this company in the long haul? Like, what's your goal as far as that goes?
Yeah, I imagine I'll move on from this company sooner or later. Um, you know, I think I kind of touched on this a little bit ago, but I'm somebody, like, my philosophy is, um, try to put yourself in a position to where you can take advantage of good opportunities as they come up. You
Mhm.
don't want to be behind the ball, right? You want to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So, if something comes up and it's really compelling, I'm gonna probably consider it strongly, and who knows? I mean, whether that's uh, the commercial airlines at some point, or maybe it's similar flying to what I do now, just kind of at a relaxed pace.
Do you have, like, any goals to fly commercially, like, for Southwest or whatever? Does that appeal to you? Or, like,
It,
what would be your dream?
yeah. So there's probably two things that would really probably get me to move on from this company. And one is like you were saying, like a Southwest. I think they're a really good company in general. I think they treat their employees really well. And the appeal of the airlines from somebody who's sitting in my seat is structure. I mean, you have a schedule that you know ahead of time. It, the financial aspect is obviously really good. Um, but the type of flying, you know, commercial flying in general, I feel like is not good for anybody, right? It's not a pleasant experience for the passengers. It's not a pleasant experience for the flight crews typically, and it's getting worse. Just the more restrictions you have. Um, and for those guys, they're flying to airports that are just the big airports. They take a shuttle to a hotel and then take a shuttle back to the airport, and there's not that kind of adventure exploring factor that I have in my job now.
Hmm.
So that's the downfall. But I think the upside outweighs the downside when you do something like that. And then the other opportunity that I'd be really interested in is just kind of like flying for, a big corporation or one family in particular that has their own jet and has a schedule and get along really well. I think there's a lot of appeal there as well.
Do you know what it takes to fly like the jet for, let's say the Warriors team jet or anything like that? Do you know the hoops you got to jump through to get that position? And I would assume it's kind of hard. Or
You
is
know,
it is it
mo-
just one, or do they just cycle through, whoever's available through like a company?
Yeah, most of those like that fly around like this professional sports teams, they have a contract with a major airline. So it's usually like a United or a Delta that they'll have a contract with, and then I think they kind of have a few pilots in that pool that fly those planes, and
Hmm.
not just all of their pilots. Um, but I yeah, I mean, I guess I know kind of what it takes to do that. It'd be flying for a major airline and kind of trying to work that angle of flying those teams around.
Does that sound appealing to you, or are you more so casual commercial?
No, I think yeah, that sounds a little more appealing than just flying regular commercial for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So do you have just overall, just overall, what are like some of your biggest goals you want to achieve before kick the bucket?
um, geez. Well, I would like to retire by the time I'm like 50 or 55.
Hmm.
Uh, be, financially stable enough to still travel and have fun and do a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
One of my big goals is to have my own airplane and be able to fly myself and my wife and, kind of go do what we want. So I'd say that's a pretty big one. Um, Outside of that, it's hard to say. I'm kind of one of those like don't plan too far ahead. Have goals, but also kind of keep your options open a little bit too. But just for me, it's all about friends, family, being happy. So, if I've got good people in my life and I'm happy, then it's really about all you need.
Is there any place in particular that you want to visit in this whole entire world?
Yeah. I really like tropical locations,
Hmm. Okay.
so like Fiji sounds really cool to me. Um, I also like to have some adventure too. I think Central America and the jungles down there, like South America and the Amazon. I'd love to see like pyramids and um, just travel to all different countries. Really, I'd love to just take a year or two off and travel the world. That to me
That
sounds
sounds
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, I would have to agree.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of my favorite or one of my places on my bucket list that I want to visit is Bangkok, Thailand, because it's like
yeah,
perfect. It's perfect, tropical, but then there's also that greenery jungle vibe too. I feel like it's the
yeah,
perfect mix, and I think that water's clear, sand's nice and peach color. I just kind of hard not to love it.
yeah. I'd say I've been to Thailand, and we flew into Bangkok. We didn't really spend much time there, but it's a big city. It's hustle and bustle. It's like
Mhm.
everything everywhere. Um, Big cities aren't as appealing to me anymore.
Mhm.
I want to get out of those big cities, really kind of see what the country's got to offer outside of that. And it, Thailand was one of my favorite places for sure. We had a great time over there. The dollar goes a long ways in a place like Thailand, so you live like a king over there for a little bit of money, which is cool.
Mhm. Yeah, so out of all the places you have been, what's your favorite place that you've been? Like, you'd go back.
Hmm, man, that's a really tough question. Um,
Do you have a top 5?
Top five, jeez. You know, um, let's see. I Yeah, I probably have a top five, I guess. Outside of the United States, um, I want to go to the places that I've been. So Thailand's up there, Philippines, just Europe in general. I really like Spain,
Oh, no, not again. Come on.
and then one of my favorite
Well,
places. Oh, right there.
yep.
I don't know what you caught and what you didn't catch there.
You said you like Spain.
Yeah, so I'd love to travel around Europe a little bit more. Spain and Netherlands and places like that. I really like. I want to try Switzerland and um, travel around there a little bit. But the Caribbean is definitely
Mm,
one of my favorite spots. And then I really like the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico.
okay.
So it's just a really unique place. It's also where I got married, so I kind of have some sentimental connection there.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just beautiful.
Have you ever been to Russia?
Never.
That's one thing I've always wanted to do, especially now that I'm starting to be more immersed in the martial arts world. A lot of martial artists come from Russia. A lot of the
Really
great ones come from Russia. Uh,
interesting.
yeah, I mean,
Oh, I guess like MMA wise, right? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Habib and
yeah,
uh, those guys. Now Islam Makhachev and all those guys. Those guys come from Russia, and I don't know, I started to learn Russian over the summer.
Oh
Obviously, I'm
wow.
nowhere near fluent and I can hardly speak it, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to learn a language that nobody could understand, like here wise, so I
Yeah,
could just say whatever I want and nobody would really understand. And second, like I said in the UFC, a lot of Russians, so
yeah,
they're speaking Russian,
yeah,
and sometimes I don't trust those translators. They probably make things nicer than they are, and
sure.
and so I want to know what they're truly saying. And I
Yeah,
also feel like if you speak another language, that just adds to your, you know,
absolutely.
and and especially now, I'm really immersed into recovery, working out, things like that, helping people become, whatever, whether that's become more athletic and train for a season, or whether that's just a mom wanting to lose weight.
Sure.
I'm really immersed into that, and so
Cool.
I'm into brain, and so when you think about making your brain work uh, optimally, you got to think your brain's literally a sponge, and you know people think about old people, and they cognitively decline slowly as they age, just
Sure.
like an 80-year-old. They're not as sharp as they once were, and that's honestly kind of by choice, because your brain's literally a sponge, like I said. So you have neurological pathways that you got to exercise and work out. That's why
Yep.
math is good. People who are really good in math are typically they're cognitive stable throughout their life, and so, learning a language is as big of an exercise mentally as anything. And so, keeping your head good, and then obviously you got to take your supplements like omega fatty acids. You need those.
Sure.
That can
Yeah.
actually take off 6 to 12 years. That can add to your expectancy of life.
Nice.
Um, and so, and I'm also into the whole vegan thing. I'm personally not vegan. I'd say I'm probably 80 to 90% vegan, but obviously,
Good for you.
once in a while, I want,
Yeah,
a fat,
some
juicy
red meat.
burger. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
or chicken. I would
Yeah,
say, majority of what I eat is vegan, but I always eat chicken and rice majority for dinner. Just because
yeah.
it's a lean meat, and also uh, it's easy to
Rich, high in
digest.
protein. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I really like that. But other than that, I really try to aim vegan. Um, I have a vegan cookbook that I try to, dial up some recipes. But other than that, like I said, so Russian,
Yeah,
place where I always wanted to go. And
yeah.
those big crown looking things, I don't know what it's
St.
called.
Petersburg,
Yeah, looks
right.
awesome.
It
And
does.
then
I agree.
Moscow, I went to Epcot in Florida, and I love the Russian section and the German
Yeah.
section. The sauerkraut dog, love
Oh,
it.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Big Kraut fan.
oh yeah. And so that those two places I really wanted to look, deeper into, and I've also have dived deeper into human psychology. I've taken many courses.
Cool.
So I wanted to go to Russia, or I wanted to go to Germany, and I wanted to see like the Ardennes Forest, World War II. I wanted to go to Belgium, see all these like historic World War II locations, and I just wanted
Yeah,
to like
same.
think. I just wanted to think, like get into the cat hole or the foxhole, sorry, and just sit there and just think, what was the guy going through? Sitting here, not knowing if he's gonna get his head blown off or not.
Man, no kidding. Yeah, there's a lot of history and, to be honest, a lot of family history, over there as well. So,
Hmm.
really cool. I've heard, I know a few people who are like multilingual and
Hmm.
speak Russian, and they do say that Russian is one of the more difficult languages you could learn.
Hmm.
And learning it is one thing, but then staying fluent in it, it's like
Yeah.
you have to be able to converse with somebody in
Hmm.
Russian like often in order to kind of keep up with it. It's one of those
Yeah.
dialects that's really really difficult to stay current in. If nobody around here speaks it,
Right.
you better have some Russian friends or something like that that you can call up. But yeah, learning another language, is definitely on my list. So I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention when I was in school to some of those
Hmm.
foreign language classes because back then I just didn't see a purpose for it. Small town Iowa, what are you going to do with another language? But
Right.
looking back at it now, it would have been a huge benefit, especially to learn like Spanish or something, which is pretty much spoken everywhere you go in America now.
Hmm. Yeah. So I learned it off of an app, Duolingo,
Oh, okay, I've heard
and
of that.
yeah, and it's kind of like it makes it easy, kind of like I can say like I can say a few things like Eto Ethan, that means this is Ethan, or Eto Sutton, this is Sutton. Like a lot of it, like I can remember that stuff, but I'll be honest, I haven't kept up with it because I've been so busy, and I've been immersing myself in so many different things
Cool.
that um I've honestly just completely forgot about doing Russian. But
Yeah.
uh yeah, it was definitely difficult because like I picked up on Spanish pretty easily. I I don't really remember much of it, but like when I was going through the class, like I was like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. You got to change this, change that. But as far as Russian goes, it's so hard. And I
It's
also
totally.
and I also tried to learn like a little bit of Chinese. Um,
Oh, that's another one.
yeah, just so hard. And I'm like, why am I
Yeah.
picking all these hard languages?
Yeah. Yeah, you ought to stick with Spanish and French, man.
Yeah. Or Portuguese is another one that I would like to learn just because of the UFC. There's a lot of Brazilians.
Yeah, and I think
And
Portuguese and Spanish there are some similarities there
mhm.
that translate over, but that's another tough one, Portuguese.
Yeah, uh, languages, I think I put them on the back burner a little bit, but I know when I have kids, and I think this is when I'll honestly uh, diverse myself into a language, is I'm not going to teach my child English first. Um, there's a lot of research that goes into that, and it's if kids are more adaptive when they're younger than trying to learn it when your mind's already, sculpted.
Mhm.
And English is an easier language to learn
Yeah.
than a lot of other ones. So I would probably teach my kid probably Spanish first, just because that'd make the most sense.
Yeah.
But I would also like to teach him something like German or Russian or just something that nobody really knows. Um, and so he would also have that to look cool.
Oh, there you are.
Uh,
You're
Did
back.
you? Oh, so yeah, I said I would only like to. I would teach my kid how to speak like a German or Russian, but probably Spanish first.
Yeah, I wish there was more emphasis on that just growing up in school and traditional education. I feel like that's one area that the United States is behind other countries.
Hmm. Yep.
Yep. Back.
Yep. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. The United States education system is just honestly kind of pathetic when you compare it to the rest of the world. Um,
Yeah, there should be more of an emphasis on, culture and different languages and stuff for sure.
well, yeah, and but at the same time, the United States is a baby compared to like the history in Europe or things like that, where it's easier for them to be able to talk about castles and dragons because they've lived it. Which I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast, and it's actually possible that dragons were a thing.
Yeah.
And also, I heard that like biologists are able to genetically engineer like a saber-toothed tiger and like bring them from extinction.
I think haven't they been trying that with the woolly mammoth too? I feel like they've got some
Yeah, I feel like
DNA
that's just
tissue,
ridiculous stuff. Yeah, they get it
yeah,
from the
frozen like ice caps or something, right?
right, and then they get the DNA, and then obviously a bunch of science. But
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
yeah, I mean, I enjoy learning about it.
Same
Like
here.
biology, obviously, I need to know biology if I want to be a surgeon, and so that's another thing. I've been like so into stuff where I'm basically like my goal is to do med school before I even got to get into it, so I can just breeze past it. Like I'm taking
Cool.
so many med school courses and stuff. I've taken like 3 MCAT study exams just so
Wow.
when the MCAT rolls around, I can breeze through it. And I want to be like
Good for
just
you.
so smart to where I don't even got to worry about med school because like med school, I want to have a life, and that's 4 years of no life, and which I
Yeah,
feel
then
like
you
I'm
got to think
saying
about after that too, right? Like a lot of
residency.
doctors and surgeons, yeah, they go through residency and you spend a lot of time away from home. I think that's one of the things. If you're one of those people who really values the social aspect of life and wants to do a lot of things independently of your work, it's
Hmm.
it's one of those things you got to think about, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously I picked the longest, actually the second longest residency next to heart and brain. Plastic surgery, just because you got to
Yeah.
learn general surgery first, and then you got to learn plastic, and then you got to use your utensils and stuff like that. So I have a 6-year residency, but at the
Wow.
same time when I in that residency I'm not making terrible money. It's 60 to 65 on average. It can get as high as 70, 75, and 75K a year for a 28-year-old, that's not bad at all. And then you
Yeah,
jump
it's
up
good.
and then it's like 600,000,
Yeah.
and then it only goes up
Pretty
from
big
there.
leap.
And yeah, and then eventually, obviously, I want to own my own practice. But the thing is I want to, especially going through med school, like I'm trying to, get a lot of stuff off the ground now to where I don't got to work, like, I don't got to work at Kohl's for years.
Yeah.
I can just, I have
Yeah.
like, a lot of different things that bring me in revenue. Like my supplements bring me in revenue.
Nice.
And so I'm just going through a lot of different things, personal training, um, publishing ebooks, uh, things like that. This podcast. I'm
Podcast.
gonna,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool.
And so I'm trying to get a lot of things up. Oh, I also resell shoes. Um, which
Got your hand
it's
in a lot of stuff, man.
oh yeah. So reselling
Little
shoes is
entrepreneur.
actually the easiest thing you can do.
Hmm.
So, but it's not guaranteed. That's why I got to work at Kohl's. So,
Yeah.
so it's $110. Well, obviously it varies, but for Hyper Dunk, Nike Dunks, it's $110 startup investment, and you just buy the shoes, and then it's just on the drop. So December 1st, there's Christmas shoes dropping.
Sure.
I'm already in the draw. The only thing is you don't know if you win the draw. I just bid $80 on a pair of hyper foam Yeezys. Things were hideous. $80 and they're gonna resell for like over 600. And I'm not a
Crazy.
mathematician, but that's a lot of money profit.
That's crazy.
And
Yeah.
so it's 110 dollars turns into 300. Off white shoes retail at like 130, I think. And then you sell them after that for over 1,000 because they're off white. And
Wow.
so I haven't hit any. This is a new development that my friend got me on, and I'm like, okay, I'll try it. It's only $110. What's the worst case? I keep them.
Sure. No, it's a good experience either way, right?
Yeah,
You
and
learn
so
something
I
from it.
I flip them. And I also another thing I'm getting started on is so there's this thing called Shopify, and it's like an online store. And so I work at Kohl's, so I get a 15% discount on top of any clearance items. So like let's say something's 85% off and it's like normally 60, but 85% off of that price, then I get 15 extra percent off of that price. So I can get stuff for really cheap. Like I got a Columbia jacket for like it was $15. I got 15% off of that. I got it for under $10. And it was a
Wow.
$80 Columbia jacket.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, you know, I'm doing that with candles because I just sell it like my name's not linked to it at all. It's just an online store. And then I'm buying candles. I'm like 85% off. I'll just buy, a lot of candles and then, I just resell them for face value. So I'm not
Sure.
necessarily ripping anybody off. I'm just, leveraging my discount
Yeah.
and then, reselling them. And then there's also, I know, people do that with like TJ Maxx and Ross. Go in there, because you can find really quality stuff there for really cheap. So then you just turn
Totally.
around, flip it, and so that's going to treat me well. I assume. I hope.
Well, keep
Uh,
that entrepreneurial spirit, man. That's what it's all about, right? I mean, you never know when you have the next great idea, and
yeah,
something small like that turns into, something really lucrative.
yeah, and a lot of my ideas comes from so I'll just be like half asleep. I'll be in bed, and that feeling when you're just dozing off, but your like mind's still awake. And
Yeah.
then, oh, I put so much together in that state. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's where a lot
I
of good
mean,
ideas come from, right?
yeah, I've
Yeah.
pieced together lies. I've pieced together. I mean, I've cottoned on to so many things in that state. That's
Yeah.
honestly something I look forward to, and I also sports bet. Um, oh, I'm so good at sports betting. I was 1.23-3. Well, I am right now
Wow.
actually 23-3 in prop bets. So that's like live betting. So like yesterday, I lost one bet yesterday, and I just quit because I made a good living for myself this weekend.
Cool.
So yeah, I bet $1 to turn into like $5 uh for the Chiefs and the Giants to score over 10 points in one quarter. I lost. The Giants were on
That's
the goal
great.
line. Oh, yeah, I lost. The Giants were on the goal line when the clock ran out of the first quarter. So I was kind of pissed off and salty. And I was at work. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to gamble any more money away, even though it's only $1.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
also do like a lot of 6 and 8 leg parlays. I've only hit one out of like a million. Uh,
Yeah.
so those are a lot harder, but I place a lot of single bets too to, cover myself.
Yeah.
And my single bets typically hit a lot. I mean, I'm obviously I
Cool.
lose my fair share, but I definitely give the sports book hell.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I know some people make a living off of that. I think we used to fly this guy around who had like, sports betting website.
Yeah.
And I mean, he obviously was doing really well. He was the kind of guy that, you'd fly him around, and anybody who got close to him, who grabbed like a bag to put it on the plane or put it in his car or whatever, he'd like pull out this stack of hundreds, it was all rolled up, and just peel them off and hand them to everybody. I mean, it was the
Huh.
craziest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually am starting that as well. So an announcement, I guess, is the weekend parlay is the podcast, and so I have two podcasts now, and it's a website where I publish my picks each week. Where I'm going to, this is like a development. I'm still building the website.
Cool.
And so yeah, I publish my picks. $5, you get my picks for the week, and you bet $5 and bet them all, and I guarantee
Right on.
you'll make more than your $5. So
Sweet.
that's like,
What's this podcast called?
oh, honestly, I haven't figured that part out yet.
Oh
I
yeah.
was
Okay.
last night I was in bed. I was scrolling through. I was just trying to think, and I was, because the weekend parlay just hit me, and I was like, that's a great name, but it's not a sports betting podcast, so I'll just make that my another one. It's like, great name. So I was just in bed last night thinking, I was like, I need a great name. I need a great name. I had a few. I marked them down on my phone, but yeah, it was initially going to be the Healthy Living Podcast, but I was like, I don't want to I want to diversify myself and, talk to a pilot, talk to, I'm hoping to get, uh, my dad's friend Gavin Tate on at one point. That's another pilot.
Oh yeah, for sure. His mom was
Uh,
my social studies teacher.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, and obviously there's a lot of doctors because my mom knows a lot of doctors, so I can,
Yeah.
and I'm in a family with a lot of medical people, so there's that.
Same here.
But yeah, I wanted to diversify myself and talk to people that are more, um, not just in the medical field. So, two ideas scratched, but the healthy living is still in full effect. I'm going to be uploading a video probably once or twice a week about just, sleep habits and, how to live healthy.
Cool.
So there's that too.
Awesome,
I
man.
mean,
That's
I
exciting
got a
stuff.
lot of goals. I got a lot of,
I don't know.
my whiteboard's full here. I don't know. But the good thing about it is I'll be free off of school here in about 6 weeks. I graduate in
Yeah,
6 weeks. And so
that's awesome,
then,
man.
then I can just immerse myself into everything, and hopefully,
Where's
get something
where's
going.
travel fit into there at all?
Traveling? Well,
Yeah.
see, that's actually good because, um, when I like a good part of what I wanted to do as far as like the healthy living or the healthy living videos, where I was gonna travel and make more of like a cinematic like
Hmm.
thing, but then, like for instance, I'll use like the Caribbean, right? So, I'll do a cinematic thing, intro, what's up? My name's Sutton, blah, blah, blah. And then cinematic into a plane, right? And then cinematic landing, and then step one, and then blah, blah, blah in the airport, blah, 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 blah. And then cinematic, and then kind of like a cinematic vlog type, but also
Gotcha.
getting my point across and how to be healthy.
Cool. I like that. That's cool. I mean,
Yeah. And
what's neat about that is, almost every region or different place that you go to has, a different thought process on healthy
mhm,
living or something like that. So
right.
it's really good to go to all these different, regions and countries and places and really kind of get really well rounded, and figure out what other people are doing that works.
Yeah, I mean, a great example is Alex Guerrero, Tom Brady's body coach. I'm actually certified Tom Brady body coach. I took the course and everything.
Cool.
I'm big into pliability. And my sports medicine class in the spring, I put on a seminar about pliability. Very educated in that aspect. Probably one of the only things I'm super educated in. And he traveled the world. It kind of reminds me of like Batman Begins when he's training in all these different places in the world, and then he comes back to Gotham, and now he's just just this guy who can fight. Kind of like it's what it reminds me of. He was in Brazil learning about acupuncture and things like that, and then he was in China learning about Chinese medicine. There's so many different types of
Yeah.
medicine, and
Yep.
that's what I did. Big into recovery, athletic recovery, any recovery. Sleep is huge in that. I made a slideshow and put on a seminar about recovery. Uh, and I own massage guns and foam rollers, vibrating foam rollers. I'm big into recovery. Epsom salt baths, cold and warm. there's so many different things you can do for recovery. That's huge. And yeah, he all kinds of places. Germany, they're big believers in cupping, which I don't believe in that. I think that's pseudoscience. But uh, those guys believe in it. Acupuncture,
Yeah.
I can get behind. Um,
Yep.
but I'm more of just pliability, which is just essentially pliability is just deep tissue massaging. And so stretching, most people are like, oh, you just need to stretch. But stretching, at least for an athlete or just older
That
people
was
in
good.
general, stretching
Oh, there you are.
is actually is bad. Like, you gotta stretching lengthens not it does good for strength, lengthening muscles and stuff. But you got to think you're not just stretching your muscle, you're stretching your tendons and your ligaments and things like that,
Sure.
which makes you more prone to injury, which is why you're seeing a lot of ACL tears and things like that because um, you're stretching those ligaments, and then kind of like a rubber band, you can only pull the rubber band so long before it eventually snaps.
Cutting out a little bit.
Oh,
So I'm only getting bits and pieces, but no, I hear you. That's interesting stuff. I guess I've always thought that stretching is one of the best things you can do. But obviously not to the extreme side of that, but some kind of light general type stretching stuff.
right. So, what I recommend to athletes, I currently work with around 5 athletes, and so what I recommend to them is do your pliability work first. Roll out on a vibrating foam roller, massage gun. Um, Obviously, with COVID and everything, I can't, dig my elbow into them and really give them, the what's for. As far as that goes, so there's a lot of things, vibrating foam rollers, things like that,
Yep.
and that's it. Do your pliability work first. And there's been times where, personally, especially like my quad, it hurts. It hurts because you're so tight.
Yeah.
Um, and so eventually you get loose, but do your pliability work before you stretch because pliability is lengthening the muscle. It's doing what you do want it to do. You're lengthening the muscle. Just think of it as like Play-Doh. I always use this diagram or this depiction. Think of it as Play-Doh and you squish it all together and then you get a roller and just roll it all out and make it smooth. That's exactly what
Hmm.
pliability is.
Sure.
And so and also pliability helps with fast twitch motions and things like that, which if you're trying to be an athlete, you
You need
kind of
that.
got to be, yeah, you need that a lot. So
Yeah. Right on, man. It sounds like you're a busy guy.
yeah. And you know I would say that, but for some reason it seems like I have a lot of free time too, which kind of bothers
Yeah.
me because I'm like, I'm doing so much, I shouldn't have free time. But then I like go down my checklist and I'm like, did that, did that, did that, did that,
Well,
did that, did that.
sounds like you're productive at least. I mean, you got a lot of things in the works, and hope you kind of make it big off of something like that. Wish you all the best
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
And another thing is, so I'm starting to get to the point where this is probably going to be the most arrogant thing I've said, but I'm starting to get to the point where I feel like I feel like I'm getting good at everything that like I wanted to be good at. Like I'm getting good at, editing videos. I can edit videos great. I've watched so many courses, taken so many courses, watched so many videos. There's this thing called Think no, not Think Media, Skillshare, and it's like a basically you just go on there and find whatever you want to learn about.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
And
Did
so
There's something like that during COVID too. It was really popular. It was like, geez, all these different courses, like a subscription based thing, but it was like professionals in each course teaching
yeah, I
you.
think it might be Skillshare
Yeah, it could be. Yeah,
because that's what it is. I paid like $15 for the year or something like that,
yeah,
and I get everything I want.
that's
So
great, man. I
now
mean,
I'm learning how to play the guitar. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Is so
sweet.
with COVID, um, it's like I want to snowboard. I want to surf. I want to do a lot of these things, but first of all, you can't surf or snowboard in Missouri. And
You
second
can in
off,
California.
yeah, I know. yeah, I'm gonna have to pay you a visit.
Yeah, you are.
But so I'm like, okay, what can I do? And so, playing playing the guitar is something that I did when I was little. I could play it, but not to the degree I want to. And
Yeah,
so I picked up and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna spend $100, or actually more like 170, but I'm gonna spend $170 on a guitar. And I'm gonna learn how to play it,
that's awesome. That's really
relearn how
cool.
to play
It's one of those things I'd like to pick up and learn too. I've always
it.
wanted
Yeah, it
to.
just goes
Rosie
back to
can play pretty well.
neuroplasticity. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes back to neuroplasticity. Same thing. That's another thing. If the second thing that I would recommend to somebody who's trying to keep their brain, their neurological pathways, fresh, and they don't just die off, just think of it as like a plant that needs to get watered. If you don't water the plant, it's gonna die.
Oh man, I agree. I think you have to keep the mind curious and active, and
Hmm.
um, I mean, I think that is the key right there.
Yeah, and so if you're not gonna learn a language, which I 100% understand why it's hard. I would recommend learning an instrument. And the
Yeah.
first thing I actually wanted to learn is Johnny B. Good, Back to the Future, Marty McFly,
Yep.
shredding on the guitar. So I was like, yeah, I want
Sweet.
to learn how to do that.
Yeah. Right on. The classics.
Yeah. So yeah,
Totally
it's
cool, man.
and I'm
It's an exciting
diversifying
time.
myself in yeah, and I'm diversifying myself in martial arts. Getting real good at that. I might end up competing. I know that's one of my goals. I want to compete in martial arts.
Like in a
Obviously it.
UFC type capacity, or like,
Yeah, yeah, I would love to
yeah.
fight in the UFC, but um, when you're
So like
running,
mixed martial arts is kind of what you're.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
I yeah, there's just I love Conor McGregor, Conor. I have two Conor McGregor fight posters. Um,
There you are.
you know, yeah, I love Conor McGregor, and
Yeah.
I just you know I love his suits. I wear a lot of suits now. Um,
Cool.
yeah, I got his whiskey over there.
Oh yeah.
I'm a huge Connor fan, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I kind of want to do this. And it's just something like I just like hard things. I like getting. There's nothing harder than a fight, because
Yeah.
in multiple ways you're fighting for your life. You could get clipped, and that could be the end of it. And to me, that kind of sounds thrilling. It's like, yeah, that sounds cool. And I also think there's not, it goes back to the old saying, chicks dig scars. And just think about like a Nate Diaz, he's all bloodied up. That just looks so cool. Obviously it's
Yeah.
not ideal, but I think it'd be worth it to be able to post a pic on the Instagram of just, a bloody face with your hand raised.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's a lot of discipline and everything that goes along with learning the martial
Yeah,
arts, and I think
exactly.
that to me is kind of what it's about. I mean, if you can get really good at it and make a living on that, I mean, the thing is, I think and you're doing a great job of diversifying yourself outside of that too, because you know, unless you're somebody like a Colin McGregor who can make hundreds of millions of dollars off one fight, there's probably a short-lived career path there
Hmm.
in
Oh
general.
yeah, and it just goes back to the neurological pathways. There's nothing worse for your head than just to get punched and kicked in it repeatedly.
Oh yeah, or your ears, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, and that's what my mom said. She was like, "You just got to pick the most violent sports, like football." Which I another goal is to play college football, which I have an opportunity to play college football.
sweet.
Division 3. But you know,
Wow, cool.
so yeah, I got
You got
so many
options,
things.
man. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
said,
kind of stressful when you think about it. Like when I sit
yeah,
down and think about everything I got to manage, uh,
yeah,
it's kind of stressful. But I still work. I work 42 hours a week typically at Kohl's, and then
yep,
I come home. I got to do schoolwork, and then now I'm managing two podcasts, managing building a website. That's hard, really
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
Um, and then growing it on social media, which if you want to grow a business, that's the best way to do it.
sure.
Um, and so promotion, I got to promote my products. Um, and so, yeah, There's a
Yeah.
lot, but somehow, some way, I figure it out.
Well, if you're passionate about it, I mean, it takes the work out of it, right, and kind of makes
Mhm.
it a little bit more real and a little more fun.
Yeah, and I gotta keep up to date with, medical things, and, I still gotta learn, and I'm not an expert. I mean, I'm smart. I'm pretty sure I can, I'm smart enough to where I feel confident in giving people advice medically, uh, as far as, like, athleticism and, how to make your body run optimally and strong.
Nice.
Um, but, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon. I still got a long ways to go till I get that.
Sure.
And so I gotta keep up to date, make it like I gotta keep learning, and so that's also hard. I buy a lot of textbooks, and which is weird. I don't know why I buy textbooks. I read a lot of books too. Got my little thing here. I just finished this book called *Sapiens*. It's a brief history of humankind. Great book. I recommend it if you're
Cool.
into reading.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm also starting up a marketing thing, how to market, because I'm starting to
Yeah.
feel like a genius in that. Because I've read so many books, I've watched so many podcasts, and that's like I normally go by the 30, 60, 90-day rule. So you take 30 days to learn it. So, 30 days ago, I was actually watching videos on how to podcast, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, which this is just a thrown together setup. I would like to have, a lot better. I have three mics here that just don't, you know, go to par. So I use them for gaming, which I might do end up doing that as well. Just because I play a lot of video games, might as well try to make money doing it.
Hey, you monetize it. Why
Yeah,
not?
exactly. And then obviously, no promotion's bad promotion. So even if I have, you know, uh, if I'm getting, let's say, like 30 viewers, right? Then I'm like, okay, let's see. I have whey protein. Um, you want some whey protein, or for a gamer, pre-workout probably better because it's caffeinated, just straight caffeine. So,
Yeah.
oh, you want oh, you want to stay up all night and play video games? Pre-workout, boom,
Yeah.
and then just sell it and sell it. So, you just got to market, and you know, and I also have good ideas in that too. Uh, so yeah, I have so much, but I'm trying to, 30, 60, 90. So 30 days to learn it and become an expert on it. 60 days to just throw yourself in. Just, you got to just do it. Growing pains, everything like that. And then 90 days to, you know, after the 60, 90 more days to uh, do it. And if it's not working, that's when you can quit it and just say, this isn't really working out. But you're really giving yourself 180 days, almost a half a year to learn something, do it, become an expert at it, you know, throw yourself to the wolves and figure it out. And that's kind of what I've been doing. So I'm on my 60th. I'm on my 60 right now for the podcast. I'm in
Cool.
my 90s for my pretty much everything else. I
Yeah.
started I started the medical thing in May. I started so pretty much in 90. Stuff doesn't start going the way I want it to after the 90th day, then I'll, reevaluate and see if, either cut my losses or you have a new business plan.
Well, I think that's probably a good way to do it, right? Because you don't invest too much in it until you know it's something that you really want to do.
Right. And the stock market, I'm big into the stock market. I hate crypto, but I love the stock market. Obviously, I'm not 18, so I got to finagle my way around that with my mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm big into green stocks. I love, green stocks. They're going to go up, especially with a
Yeah.
democratic country. Um,
Well, it's just the
y-
direction everything's going, right? I
well,
mean,
yeah,
clean
and
energy and
honestly, and I believe in it. I believe in going green
yeah, same
because,
here.
um, you know, I don't believe in eating. Obviously, I sound hypocritical, but like eating fish. Do you watch Netflix? Do you have a Netflix
Sure.
account? Okay,
Yep.
so have you seen Seaspiracy?
I have.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Um, I follow him on Instagram and, the fish farms and, killing sharks and stuff. I actually adopted a shark. I spent like, what was it, like 25 bucks. And they sent me a card with a QR code to track a shark. I got a hammerhead. His name was like Bullet or
Nice.
something. And I got a
Cool.
bracelet. I feel like I did my part there. It's only 20 bucks, but 20 more bucks
Yeah,
than they would have had.
that's great. That's really
And so
great.
I feel like I'm doing
I
my
think that
part.
documentary brought a lot to light, right? I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
those things.
And,
It's like,
you know,
how did we not put that together before? I mean, it's just it's unreal. But no, I'm with you on that. I think that's awesome.
yeah. And how, well, first of all, if Tom Brady's following your Instagram account, you definitely, and shouting you out like frequently, then you obviously have some sort of a social presence. Tom
Yeah,
Brady just doesn't do that for everyone.
yeah,
So that really stood out to me, and anything Tom Brady believes in, obviously I can believe in. I can get behind it. Um, and he lives a holistic approach too. He's more so vegan as well.
yeah. Right.
And so that obviously that and everyone's like, "Why are you vegan? Why are you vegan?" It's because well, I have my own beliefs. I also watched oh, it's on Netflix. If you, it's about vegan. I recommend it. Vegan can reverse heart disease. And I recommend it. Obviously, it's a hard thing. I'm not saying it's easy, but if you can, it,
Talk to me. Yeah.
strongly recommend it. I strongly recommend going vegan. But if you
Yeah.
on Netflix, there's a documentary about it. I recommend it.
Cool.
Don't remember the name. Just it's about athletes and going vegan. You'll if you look
Nice.
for it, you'll find it.
No, yeah, I'll check it out. I'm kind of an adventurous eater.
Uh huh.
To be honest, I don't really have any food restrictions. I definitely want to be thoughtful, when I choose food or what I put in my body. I want to make sure it's of high quality and um, but it's one of the perks of my job is to get to go to all these different places, and I love getting
Yeah.
like the local flavor of where I go. All the different cuisines. So I like to not restrict that too much, but at the same time, be really thoughtful about it. And, things like commercialized fishing and it's something that I wasn't immediately aware of, but am more so now, and it definitely plays a factor in what I eat.
Yeah. And I love salmon. Salmon's probably one of my favorite, like probably one of the only fish I'll actually eat. But
Yeah.
ever since watching that documentary, I've really put a halt on eating salmon.
What about like if you take a trip to Alaska and catch it yourself?
Okay, that's a little different because first
Yeah.
of all, and the thing is I'm hypocritical in the sense of I love hunting. Like in the
Yeah.
spring, I can't wait for turkey hunting.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of hypocritical in that sense, but at the same time, I feel like if I were to ever go 100% vegan, which is a goal, I would honestly just hunt and then bring the meat back to like my family because I know they would eat it. They're obviously
Yeah.
not vegan.
I don't know that that's all
Um,
that hypocritical because I mean to be against like the commercialized aspect of
mhm.
big food and commercialized fishing and stuff like that. I think it's totally different when you actually catch the fish yourself or hunt the game yourself. You know where it came from.
Yeah.
It's it's more sustainable than doing it in like a mass amount. Um,
Mhm.
so actually, I like that approach. I like the do it yourself, eat it yourself kind of thing versus
Well,
you know
yeah, ultimately one
supermarket.
of my goals is like a long-term goals, like super long-term, like 30, 40 goals, like when I'm in that age range, is to have like just a cabin that's completely off grid, runs off of solar, which I want my
Yeah,
house to run off of solar, but just completely off the grid to where I can just go there. Because as a surgeon,
totally.
I kind of get to make my own schedule. Can't do a
Yeah,
surgery without the surgeon. And so I want to make my own schedule and just take a week off and just go up to the mountains, kind of like the Unabomber, like just what he had, just and this little
no, I
cabin
gotcha.
in the
Yeah,
middle of nowhere. Just stay there for a week, relax. No
I'm with you.
electricity.
That's super
If
appealing
there
to me
is
too.
hardly any, just enough for the lights and maybe to charge my phone.
Yeah.
But even then, do I have service?
Yeah.
Or I've also been into a camper, like big sprinter vans turned into a camper, completely run off grid. I've been watching
Nice.
a lot of those videos. Seems super
Cool.
appealing to me as well.
Yeah. No, I'm all about it, man. I mean, that's one of the reasons we got this place up in the mountains is to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city and noise.
Hmm.
You know, come up here and enjoy, wildlife and nature and go hiking, biking, kayaking, skiing. It's all like within reach around here. So that was the big appeal of coming up here.
Yeah, those things are my favorite too. Outdoors things.
Yeah.
I love a good hike. Um, Kayaking's a blast.
Yep.
Love it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and just being outdoors. That's why I feel like I would like hunting a lot. I haven't been, but I know somebody's gonna take me, which is why I can't wait for turkey season. And I
Cool.
also like bow hunting. I want to learn how to bow hunt. Again, just
Yeah.
another thing. I'm like, okay, I'll learn it. Like, just might as well learn it. Because what happens? And then I start thinking, well, what happens if there's an apocalypse and then I got to take my bow and hunt my own game? I'm gonna be more diverse than the guy who's shops at Hy-Vee and doesn't know how to skin a buck or do anything like that.
Absolutely. It's a cool skill to know.
Yeah, and I mean that doesn't. I'm not one of these guys like Joe Rogan who will only eat meat I kill. Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I get there eventually, but as of right now and in the foreseeable future, not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Right on, man.
don't you have somewhere to be at
Yeah.
2:30
Well, it's
or
it's
12:30?
my it's my last day off before I start my work block. So we're headed
Oh,
down the
okay.
mountain back
Uh-huh.
to the city today. So we'll do
Nice,
that
nice.
here in a couple hours. So yeah, I gotta kind of prep the house and shut everything off and close it down and lock it up.
All right, well, we can go ahead and wrap this up. We got, a couple hours worth anyway,
Cool.
almost 2 hours.
Nice.
Um, so thank you for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for
Um,
having me, man. It's super fun.
yeah, I hope to, you'll be back on eventually, I'm sure.
I'd love to.
But
It'd be awesome.
yeah, it's gonna premiere on Friday. I'll send you the link to it once it
Great.
premieres.
Sweet.
Stuff like that. But yeah, thank you for joining me. Thank you for everybody for watching, and yeah, see you.
Awesome. Take care, man.
Oh, there we go.